Hello everyone, welcome to Resonant News. Today we are going to interview a very eminent veteran from the Indian Army with a very decorous past. His name is Col Rakesh Sharma. Col Rakesh Sharma is an infantry veteran with more than 32 years of service in the Indian Army. In his 3 decades of military service, he has served from the grassroots level to staff of strategic decision making and planning. He's also served in full spectrum of operations from India's counter-terrorism operations to periods in world's highest and coldest battlefield in Siachen. After his retirement, he's taken a keen interest in world politics and economy, especially when it comes to China and Pakistan. This is exactly why we think he is the right person for a discussion today on India-China standoff. So let us begin the show. Thank you so much, sir, for coming to our show. And I'm really privileged to have you here. Um, I thought you were just the right person to talk on this topic on India China issue. And when I nudged my audiences, they gave me a lot of questions that I should be asking you. And I hope I'll be able to give them the right answers after this interview is over. I mean, uh, you're
It's
just the
a,
right person for
it's
it.
a pleasure.
I thought.
It's a pleasure, and in many ways, it's quite satisfying also to be able to interact and convey the viewpoints and the answers to certain queries.
Yes. Actually, there's a lot of ambiguity right now when it comes to India-China issue, and this is why I asked my audiences what kind of questions would you like to ask Colonel Sharma. So the very first question that I got was that the most recent updates, they're kind of contradictory. On one side, we have China doubling its fighter jets along the LAC, and on the other side, Russia plans a meeting with India and China in September.
Uh,
Do you
you see,
not see a contradiction of sorts?
no, I'll just take a minute to explain to you the dynamics of interstate relations.
Uh-huh.
You see, the interstate relations do not function in a single dimension. Uh, what happens with most of us is that we see the dimension that is in prominence, and then we start looking at that particular dimension, and for whatever happens, we see that in that particular dimension. The there are two sets of or three sets of international relations when you have the contacts or interstate interactions. First is bilateral, that is a country to country basis. So you have one country, country A interacting with country B, and depending on the state of relationships at that particular moment, the bonhomie or adversarial interaction will take place. The second thing is the trilateral. In trilateral, what happens is that there are common interests between the three, and they then try to pursue their common interests ahead. Now, when you're talking about trilateral meeting, what happens is that the out of the three, two may be on an adversarial note, but they have some common interest. So the three of them try and work around that, how to progress those common interests. Now, India-China interaction, which is going on at the bilateral level, is currently at two levels. Number one is at the military level, and number two, it is at the level of the uh, WMCC. See, so these are the two levels at this.
WMCC is?
It's the monitoring committee. The as per the our agreements that we had in 2013, we had set up this WMCC arrangement where it was said that when things get out of hand at the borders, then these committees will sit down and they will thrash out and they'll find ways and means to maintain peace and tranquility at the LAC. So so these are the at two levels we are interacting with between India and China. Now on a trilateral level, we are interacting with China, say, like with Russia, India, Russia, and China.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
That contradiction that I was talking about.
if you look at China's conduct over, especially after 2015, China has systematically planned for this kind of a confrontation. It was just that COVID, gave them an opportunity where they felt that they could, sort out the rest of the world. To put my own words, that China saw an opportunity to establish its hegemony over the whole world. That is what Xi Jinping is today aiming for. So I do not think that Russia would be able to prevail upon China to tone down the temperatures or scale
De-escalate
down its
and yeah.
ambitions.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah,
now
they're
I'll
not likely to
move.
de-escalate.
So you do feel that Russia's involvement is not going to de-escalate. So I think I'll move to the next question then, because that is another news which came. I spotted today in the headlines that CDS has said we are prepared for the long haul on LAC. So, as the winters approach, will it become a little more difficult for us to carry out the patrolling and for our soldiers to secure the borders along the LAC,
Uh,
especially?
no, not at all. Not at all. You see, there has always been a presence on the LAC. The LAC has always been, properly patrolled and secured. Uh, but the thing is that there's a concept called contingency planning. Now we have in Indian Army we have well rehearsed contingency plannings for all eventualities. And the
That's right.
current scenario has also been, I mean, it was rehearsed as way back as 86, 87 when I was there.
Okay.
And in 87 we implemented it when the Somdrongchu incident happened in Arunachal Pradesh. Then all across the LAC we adopted what was called a forward posture. Today we have better means. Those days we used to patrol on foot accompanied by animal columns. Today we have electronic surveillance, we have drone surveillance, we have yeah, satellite surveillance. So today our surveillance capabilities are much better, and the transparency of the theater is much higher. So, as far as what CDS meant to convey to the parliamentary committee was that we are not looking for a short term or a short duration engagement where things will be resolved. We will be there. It should be read like that we will be there for as long as it takes. It may take 2 months, it may take 6 months, it may take 2 years. We must not forget that the crisis that started in 1987 was finally resolved after 7 years in 1993, when the first border peace and tranquility agreement was signed with China by the then Prime Minister Narasimha Rao's government. So that time it took 7 years. But that time there was no television, there was no social media, and there was no fastest fingers first. So
Yeah.
that is why people could do things. Today we look at it. That's why I always say that this is not a T20 match.
Mm.
This is not even a test match. This is a long drawn test series where you have one series, one test match after the other. So that is the approach that we have to take.
So we are actually gonna stay there as long as China will continue its belligerence, you mean, right? So
Yes,
the extra men moving there is not a burden at all. Like you said, it's already planned for.
yes, not at all.
Oh, that's right. That's
There,
actually,
there
I'm
is
relieved to
these
hear that.
one area where we have got a lot of catching up to do is what I have been saying, and I think I said 2 days back also on Twitter, that we lost 2 decades. You see, for 2 decades there was no induction of any modern equipment worthwhile in the forces. Last 4 5 years, there has been phenomenal. It is happening, but we are still not where we want to reach the ideal situation. But despite that, we today are in a position that should China try any misadventure, they'll live to regret it. They'll live to regret it. That's it.
That's pretty heartening actually to hear that. So now that you've mentioned Pakistan, I would like to move to my next questions exactly about Pakistan. That what about China-Pakistan collusivity in Karakoram and Shagzam Valley? I hope I have pronounced it right. It's called Shagzam, right?
Yeah, it's Shaksham. The
Shagzam.
thing is, uh, if you've seen, I put out a tweet, I think 2 days back, when this whole episode of Saudi Arabia withdrawing $1 billion from Pakistan took place. China gave Pakistan $1 billion and took a contract of $6.8 billion. Now, what was that contract of $6.8 billion? That contract was to upgrade the railways from Karachi to Peshawar. The importance of that is link it to China's now getting close to Iran. Now, China will use the Afghan route. There is a Wakhan corridor. There is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
there is a Coast Guard in Xinjiang province. There is a Coast Guard terminal hub. Uh, you see, I'll just digress to give you a short picture of what the logistic plan of China is. They are moving goods by river transport from Shanghai to a place called Chongqing. Chongqing is west of Three Gorges. It's upstream of Three Gorges Dam. There are locks at Three Gorges Dam. The barges move up that. And at Chongqing is a multimodal center where they are transferred to railway trains. And these trains, they go all the way to Europe. And in last, I think 1 year or 2 years, they have sent more than 10,000 trains on that route.
Oh,
Now, one of the very important hubs of that is Coast Guard, and this is on the border of, in that area of the western and southern pocket of Xinjiang province. Now, if just imagine the importance of uh, CPAC to the northern areas of Pakistan is totally gone. If this railway line comes up, they will
yeah.
transport goods from Karachi, from Gwadar to Peshawar. At Peshawar, they will set up a inland terminal, container terminal, from where they will be put on roads and taken into Afghanistan.
Afghanistan.
India has built a beautiful 6-lane highway there. They'll use that highway. They'll use the Wakhan corridor on the north and connect to Koskar, and thereafter they'll be supplying
Reach.
to the entire, their this thing. The gradient is lesser. There are less number of mountains, and the biggest thing is that this area would be relatively calm and free from dispute, because US has already told that any activities that China is carrying out, US State Department has given a statement that any China carrying out any activities in Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir is uh, illegal, because that territory is under illegal occupation of Pakistan. So that issue China will now be able to circumvent by going via Peshawar into
The
Afghanistan, and then
Wakhan.
through the Wakhan corridor they'll end up to their terminal depot. So as far as the collusion between China and Pakistan is concerned, why I digress this was, is we have to understand how China treats Pakistan. China treats Pakistan as a client state, as a subservient state. They are extracting from them. If I was a Pakistani, I would be very worried about what China is doing in the Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir area, especially Gilgit Baltistan. The reason for that is that China is building 3 dams in Gilgit Baltistan. The importance of these dams is that it will take away the water, and in next 5 years, we have seen it happen in Mekong River. They are trying it with Brahmaputra, and they will do it here. China needs water to keep the water levels high in off season in its inland water transport system. That is the first thing. The second thing is that China needs fresh water because at a place called Khasgar in Xinjiang, China is setting up the world's largest polysilicon factory to manufacture the chips, the wafers that are used for the the our IC devices, integrated circuit devices, and all. So for that you require a lot of fresh water. Now, Khaskar area, the area immediately north of Tibet, are all in rain shadow and there is water shortage there. But these areas are rich in rare minerals. So that is why that factory has come up there. And I am 100% sure that as things unfold, the water from the dams in Gilgit-Baltistan will be taken by China to Xinjiang province, and the Pakistanis will be left to fend for themselves.
That's quite illuminating, actually. You've joined all the dots for me suddenly, that Karakoram, Shaksam, and of course the POK issue. This suddenly makes sense because I did hear about this earthquake which happened in POK a few years ago, and people did complain, and they ended up with an extra lake which is now eating up, all the houses and of the poor
Yes,
people. Yeah. So, I mean, what I mean is these dams are causing a lot of damage within POK. So now that
yes.
you brought that thing up, thank you so much for bringing that up too. So next, I'll move to the current engagement or the disengagement talks that we are having. And we're almost sure that China is not going to back off. So right now we are having disengagement talks on Pangong, so hot springs, Galwan, Depsang plains, and all these topics. Yet I saw Chinese veterans hinting at mid-sized war. What should a mid-sized war mean, and what can we expect? What will be the repercussions if something like that
Uh,
happens?
you see, we have to understand first of all that what are the resources that China would have to commit, military resources, for a full-scale war across the entire length of LAC, that is around 3,500 kilometers. It's so China would have to commit at least minimum, I would say, that up to 15 to 18 division size force. Okay. Now, put that in context. China has a total of 25 infantry divisions and 10 motorized oblique armored formations. So, and bulk of that are oriented towards Taiwan. They already, day before yesterday, there was news that their Marines and their motorized formations have been seen opposite the Taiwan Straits, and they're gone on to high alert.
True,
The
true. I saw that headline today also that,
Yeah,
something similar.
but that being said, you see, we have to understand how the Chinese operate. They will not go into a full-scale war. What they're doing to India, they did it very successfully with Tajikistan. They went in, they claimed a huge swath of land, and then settled for 1,000 square kilometers. Okay,
Oh,
now recently, yeah, so now recently they've made a claim for almost 45% of land mass of Pamir area, Pamir region. So against Tajikistan. Now this is what China does. Uh, they show an intention to create disturbance, create a conflict, and then as a negotiated settlement, they will settle down for 50% or 40% or little bit less than what they had originally demanded. They've done it successfully with the Central Asian republics.
Tajikistan.
Yeah, even in everything, all along their northwestern frontier, they have occupied territory from these three South Asian republics through this technique only. They tried it with Vietnam, they failed. Vietnam gave them a
Hmm.
real this thing. They are
Lesson as
trying,
well.
yeah, they're trying it with the, very underhand and very on a low key basis with Myanmar, because they need Myanmar. Now, what they're trying with India is, you see, the they are trying to their means actually are, I would say, their aim is actually fourfold. And what most of us are neglecting is that China is wanting. You see, India's number one priority today is not China. India's number one priority today is recovery from COVID and recovery of economy from the after effects of COVID. Now, with that being number one priority of India, China, by its actions, is seeking to divert India's attention and resources. You see, it is most critical. When you are scaling up for an operation or something, it costs money, and this money which could have gone into providing better healthcare, better impetus for industries, agriculture sector, that money is getting diverted towards countering this belligerent neighbor. So that
Yeah.
is the first thing. The second thing that China wants to do is, you see, if you look at the psychology of the investors, the investor will only invest where he is sure of a long-term, peaceful investment climate. By creating this problem on the LAC and between India and China, China is actually sending a message to international investors that look, if you go to India, I will not let you invest in peace.
Oh, yeah.
ठीक है ना? The third thing that is happening is that China is looking somewhere to psychologically try and overpower India. And in this, I'm sad to say regretfully, but some of our very prominent personalities in India are inadvertently playing into Chinese hands. You see, at this moment, we against China as a nation, we should be standing and speaking in
United.
one voice. There is enough time in life for a post-mortem. When Kargil operations happened, as a classic example, during the time the operations were on, the country was won. After the operations got over, India set up a Subramaniam committee which went into all details of what went wrong and what corrective measures should be put in place. Some of those corrective measures were put in place, some of them got sidelined because of various vested interests,
Political.
but that's the way to do it. This kind of T20 match type of psychology, that sending every ball that is bowled for third umpire's opinion, is actually ridiculous, and it this is what China wants. And with full sense of responsibility now, uh, I had today also, I have been saying this, I've run a thread on this. It is high time that India's main opposition party comes clean on what agreement it signed with China, because the agreement that it signed with China was signed with an organization that is the arm of Chinese state security. It has very serious ramifications. You cannot go and sign, no political party can go and sign an agreement with an intelligence wing of an adversary. It's as simple as, next you will have somebody going and signing an agreement with the Pakistan ISI or with the
True,
Bangladesh
true,
intelligence or with,
true.
so that is this is the second aim, that they want to fracture our national will. But they have not been successful, because the latest India Today Mood of the Nation surveys have shown that the nation is solidly, on this issue, they are one. And China has already suffered a 27% drop in its exports to India, and it is only going to magnify now.
True, true. So, actually, we have
Now,
landed just a
another
minute, right? Yeah.
Now, one more point, that you see, now this was it, how what it was conveying to India. The three things that it said: it will keep divert mind of India from the economic and COVID recovery. Number two, it is try to break India's morale as an adversary. Number three, send a message to foreign investors. Now, fourth is, it's a messaging to the smaller states along the South China Sea. The message to the smaller states is that China is not afraid to bully India, a nuclear power, so we can sort you out anytime. You see,
Mm.
now, if India's standing up to China and staring down China is in ways will embolden these smaller states to also stand up and say, okay, look, yes, China can be stared down. So this is the larger messaging that is going on.
True. So there's more to China's incursions at the borders, and it's not just about a military logic, but it also extends to a lot of other stuff. Like, actually, we have landed on just the right point. My last question is exactly this. So China started an exercise in Aksai Chin in the month of January. By April, May, they had begun their intrusions into our borders. But last year, I think after August 5, by October they had started. I mean, JNU, we know a lot of JNU entities are pro-China. They had started a JNU protest, and then by November we had CAA protest, and 2 months down the lane, COVID happened, and then these intrusions. So, am I joining the dots correctly? Is CAA is part of this bigger strategy, anti-CAA protests and these intrusions? Are this all related?
You see, the if you look at how things have unfolded, and as we say that we connect the dots. Now it has been established that the anti-CA protest was funded by PFI, who got money from abroad.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
has been established through investigations.
In
Uh,
fact, I think they have also established that China was behind that funding, bit of
uh,
it.
it is it is it
Maybe
is
through Pakistan.
indicate. You see, there are two three things. Number one is that what facts you have, they seem to indicate a pattern, and second is you have facts that confirm a pattern. So the Chinese being behind it is an indicative, but Pakistan behind it is confirmed.
Ah,
So,
yeah.
so now the thing is that you see, we actually live in a we have a tendency to behave sometimes like a pigeon who closes his eyes on seeing a cat. From 1960, or rather, I would say from 1950 onwards, China has, there is not a single incident in history where China has behaved as a friend of India. China has always been adversarial to India. They have, they have, and China has always realized and played the game that India is probably the only Asian power that will, that can counter and challenge China's rise to whatever Chinese feel is their just position on the world map. Uh, One factor which most of us are overlooking, and that factor is that China doesn't have time. Time is running out on China. Why it is running out on China? Because their population is aging. Uh, there was a survey that was carried out, and it was felt that data that was made available up to 2018, in 10 years from 2015 to 2025, I'm giving you crisp data so that you know this thing. From 2015 to 2025, China will lose about 20 million population in the age group of 20 to 30. The main working age group, or which makes your economy grow, is age group of 20 to 30. And in 2025, there will be 20 million people less in that age group than what they had in 2015. Now imagine, the second factor there is that
It's quite
China is,
interesting.
yeah, China is running out of girls. You know, it was very interesting this year in May when they had their two sessions of the CPC, their parliamentary meeting in Beijing in May. A paper was presented by a social scientist which called for girls to be allowed to marry two men. Their gender ratio is so skewed. They are running out. You know, they,
I'm sorry. That logic just
yeah, but there was a paper which was
goes over
presented
me.
to the Chinese lawmakers. You see, that is the seriousness of the issue. The third thing that is happening is, again, it is estimated that by 20 between 2030 and 2050 of this year, century, China's population will start crossing a limit, that is that more than 50% of its population will be above the age of 55 at the in 2030, and by 2050 that will number will rise to 60%. The average farm hand age today in rural China is 47 years. What productivity will a 47-year-old man have? Because young men have all gone to urban areas to work. See, so there is a huge demographic uh, cancer that is eating up the Chinese growth story. China knows it. They just have next 5 years. If they can do whatever they have to do, they can do it with it. That is why, it's a very funny thing. China is probably the only country in the world which has a 3-year conscription cycle. Every person who crosses the age of 18 is required to register in his county. Out of that, they take about 20% of them are enrolled. They join the service for a 4-year tenure, 1 year of their basic training, 2 years of service, and in the fourth year, they do what is called the dual training, which prepares them for living in civil life. This is how they're trying to overcome the age shortage. The Chinese Navy had to recall its retired naval veterans to man their ships. They don't have the manpower at all. So, and Xi Jinping knows it. If he if he does not do it now, then the Chinese story is over. China will become a nation of old and aged. Their medical bills will climb. It was funny when Global Times threatened that we can also impose sanctions on India. And our response was that our single largest export to China is anti-malignancy drugs. They're, they don't have anti-malignancy drugs. So this is the kind of problem that China is facing. Xi Jinping has 5 years. This is what people have to realize. We just have to stand firm. We don't have to get into a wrestling match with China. Wherever they try to step out of line, give them a nice tight whack in the right place, put them in their place, keep them at a distance, and firmly settle them down. China's growth story is over.
That is such a great note to finish this interview at, because this is like quite illuminating. I mean, you have stated facts that has really shocked me. Now it makes sense why I thought Xi Jinping was an over-ambitious man. That despite COVID-19 spreading, he's continuing with his bots are continuing with their intrusions on our borders. But now it makes sense. It makes so much sense. This is like a knowledge bomb on me. Honestly, I thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for being on this interview,
My
and
pleasure. My pleasure.
and I'm sure the audience is gonna love this. And
Thank you.
thank you
Thank
so
you.
much,
I
sir.
hope
Yeah, so
it was a pleasure talking to you.
thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed today's show. You can also follow Colonel Rakesh Sharma on Twitter. His ID is DesertFox61I. If you enjoyed the show, do not forget to give us a like and do not forget to subscribe to our channel. You can also visit our website resonantnews.com. Continue watching shows on strategic affairs, defense, and ancient wisdom here on our channel. We are Resonant News.